Hey guys, welcome to yet another edition of Enota Digital Storytime. I'm so glad you could be here, but let's dive right in. Here we go. All right, well, thank you, Nutsy. Yet again, welcome. We're going to play my favorite game. It's called Guess the Sound. I want you to grab a sibling, grab a brother, grab a mother, grab an uncle, anybody around, grab them and see if they can guess what the sound is. And they've been hard this week, so let's see if you can guess this hard sound. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, listen. Ooh, that's kind of a funny sound. Let's hear it again. Kind of like me every time I check the news in the morning. Like, what is it now? The news has been so bad lately. Let's hear it again. All right, guys. Well, you got to guess what it is. I'm going to give you 3 seconds wait time. All right, I'm back. Just say out loud what you thought it was. And now we're going to do a drum roll and see what it is. Here we go. It is an alligator hissing. Look at that big alligator. Would you want him walking in your backyard? Now, I know a guy that says you can eat alligator, but I don't even want to get close to one, let alone eat him. So I don't know why some people would want to eat that thing. As far as I'm concerned, I'll leave alligators alone. But guys, today I want to share with you some of the these are literally the oldest or some of the oldest stories ever written for children in the history of the world. They were written about 3,000 years ago, a little less than 3,000 years ago, in Greek by a guy named Aesop or Aesop. I always said Aesop growing up. I know some people say Aesop. I'm pretty sure it's Aesop though, just because that's what Miss Linda said it was when I was in kindergarten. So I'm going to tell you that now. Anyways, J.P. Miller made these great pictures to accompany Aesop's text. And here's a picture of him. He was a Greek guy and he made stories for kids. That's what he looked like, so let's dive right in. Here we go. This one's called The Dog and His Reflection. And it starts off with the dog. Look at him. He's seeing that delicious steak right there. What do you think he wants to do? He wants to grab it. One day, a dog stole a lamb chop from his master's table, knocked everything over, ran outside, rushed out of the house with it before anyone could stop him, and never stopped running until he reached the woods. What do you think he did with it out there? Well, I know you're smart. You think he ate it, and I would think he ate it too. I don't even know if I could have got to that fence. Mr. Sanders loves a good lamb chop, but he ran all the way into these woods back here. Let's see what he did. As he carried the chop over a bridge, the dog looked down into the stream, and there he saw his own reflection in the clear water. He saw himself. But he thought he was looking at another dog with another bigger looking lamb chop, and being greedy, he wanted to have that other chop too. The dog let out a loud "Rah!" and opened his mouth to grab the other dog's chop. Alas! As soon as he opened his mouth, his own lamb chop dropped into the water and sank out of sight. Now he had nothing. Instead of having 2 chops, the greedy dog had nothing at all. And the moral or the lesson of that story is, if you grab for more, you may lose what you already have. Each one of these stories has a lesson. Well, this next story is a classic. You may have heard it before. It's called The Shepherd Boy and the Wolf. And it goes like this. A shepherd boy went out to the hills every day with his father's sheep. He had to take care of them. That was his job. He looked after these sheep while they ate the grass on the hill. The pasture was a lonely spot beside a dark forest, and the hours passed by slowly. You think that would be boring a little bit, sitting there watching sheep all day? The boy often longed for some company to make the time pass faster. He could joke around with friends. And he began to think it might even be fun if a wolf came to attack the sheep. You think it would be fun to have a wolf jump in right there? I don't. Then everyone would come rushing, and there would be some excitement for a change. So one day the boy decided to give the alarm just to see what would happen. And hiding behind a tree, he shouted loudly, "Wolf! Wolf! There's a wolf in the land! They're getting everything!" The men in the village snatched up their clubs and guns and came running as fast as they could. But when they reached the pasture, they saw no wolf. The sheep was grazing peacefully, and the shepherd boy was laughing. "It was only a joke," he explained. "I wanted to see what would happen if I called for help, and you fell for it." Well, do you think these guys liked it when he called and they ran up there for no reason because they thought there was a wolf? I bet they didn't like that. Then one day a wolf really did creep into the pasture and fall upon the sheep. "Rah! Rah!" The frightened boy ran down the hill screaming, "Wolf! Wolf!" as loudly as he could, but the men in the village thought it was just another silly trick. They smiled at each other and shook their heads. They were not going to be fooled again. So the wolf enjoyed himself feasting upon the poor sheep. And when he finally vanished into the dark forest, the boy gathered what was left of his flock and returned to the village. He was sad and ashamed, but he had learned his lesson. And the moral or the lesson of that story is, those who lie are not believed when they finally tell the truth. He shouldn't have lied to those townspeople. Then they didn't believe him later. Well, this is a funny one. This is called The Frog and the Ox. And look at all these little frogs. And look at this big frog right here. A big frog once lived in a small pond. And because he was the biggest creature in the pond, the frog decided he must also be the biggest thing in the entire world. As he sunned himself on his lily pad, he puffed out his chest with pride. "No one anywhere is bigger than I am," he thought. "I'm so big and strong. I'm handsome too. Look at me." Yeah, he thought he would get 1 million followers on Instagram. One day, a huge ox came to drink at the pond, and the frog was amazed, but he refused to be impressed. "I suppose you think you are big," the frog called out to the ox, "but I want you to know that I can make myself just as big as you." The ox did not reply. He just kept on drinking water. "If you don't believe me," shouted the frog, "just watch." The frog took a deep breath and blew himself up to twice his usual size. But still the ox paid no attention to him. "So that's not big enough for you?" croaked the frog. "Very well, I'll make myself bigger still." And he blew himself up even larger. Again the ox said nothing. He simply turned away and headed for the other side of the pond. He had had enough to drink, and this made the frog furious. Taking an enormous breath, he blew and blew and blew himself up until he burst. And that was the end of the big frog in the small pond. And the lesson of this story is, don't try to be what you can't be. Because it was that frog couldn't get as big as that big ox. Look how big he is. Well, guys, that's the end of our short little Aesop stories. And all his stories are short like this. But if you're ever at the library at our media center, we have a lot of Aesop stories. Mr. Sanders loves these stories. And they are timeless classics that are highly recommended by everyone who loves kids books. These are the first kids books ever made. So if you're at the library or you're looking around for a free ebook on Google, these are the kind of books that are free because they're so old. You could read an Aesop fable and maybe learn a thing or two. People have loved these books for years. But hey, my wife says I drag out these outros, so I'm out of time, and I can't wait to see you all again. It won't be long. Bye.